2 kilometers? No, then they had to go to Westminster, Windsor, which was a long way out.
There was a long mile next door. This was a golden long mile.
Yeah, yeah. It was great. It was great.
Yeah.
She designed everything, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, this Debbie still got a stupid mask on.
I call this meeting to order. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accepts the agenda for September 19th, 2022 council meeting as presented. Do I have a mover? Anita moves. Seconder, please. Kevin seconds. All in favor? Carries. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is a traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Waki, Ottawa, and Mississaugas people. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Not seeing any, we will continue on. Public comments. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to speak to an item of business that is on this agenda. 2 minutes per person. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to anything? If you can give us your name and address and go ahead.
Rachel King with the Blythe Festival. Can I get you to push the button on the top of the microphone to turn it on?
It's on the top. On the.
Rachel King with the Blythe Festival. Blythe Festival has some stark concerns about the parking limits being proposed on Queen Street in Blythe, particularly for the way ancillary economic impacts will suffer if the limit imposed is set at only 2 hours. Why not 3 hours or 4 hours? Stratford, Ontario, arguably the strongest local economy in our region, also has an array of parking limits downtown, but in Stratford, the main street, Highway 8, has a 4-hour parking limit. This 4-hour limit ensures that downtown businesses thrive. Attendees at the festival can park, shop, see a show, eat in a local restaurant, or go for drinks and dessert, all within a 4-hour window. This limit downtown was set in order to ensure turnover while simultaneously maximizing the economic spin-offs of the Stratford Festival. According to an independent economic impact study completed by PricewaterhouseCoopers in early 2020, for every dollar spent on a Blythe Festival ticket, $13 are spent in the region's economy. Restaurants, retail, bed and breakfast, service groups with their country suppers are all beneficiaries of a successful Blythe Festival season. Blythe Festival has been a driver of economic activity beyond its bottom line for 47 years. Our ongoing economic impact in the region represents more than $7.5 million annually, including more than $2 million in government revenues at the federal, provincial, and municipal level. A 2-hour parking limit in downtown Blythe means that festival attendees would be actively discouraged from eating in our restaurants, shopping in our stores, and browsing in our galleries. A 2-hour parking limit downtown means seeing a play and then attending a church or Legion supper would be impossible. Most plays at the Blythe Festival run 2 hours plus intermission. A 2-hour limit would only encourage festival attendees to arrive as close to a show time as possible and to leave immediately after. This seems like an unfortunate miscalculation and a potentially serious economic mistake. In 2023, Blythe Festival is poised to return to both indoor shows at Memorial Hall and outdoor shows at the Harvest Stage. We're anticipating a return to a scope and scale of operations that could see us exceed the PricewaterhouseCoopers conclusions. The question for the township becomes, will local businesses be beneficiaries of that growth, or will all that economic activity flow to other towns? Blythe Festival supports the call for a parking limit on Queen Street, but we ask council and staff to strongly reconsider the 2-hour proposal and urge you to look to the successes of our neighbors in Stratford. Simply put, for the community to benefit economically from attendees at Blythe Festival, we need to encourage those folks to stay in town as long as possible. A 2-hour parking limit ensures lost opportunity with every single performance of the festival, every concert, every recital, and every event from here on out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. King. Okay. Anyone else like to speak to anything? Not seeing or hearing anyone. Consent agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent items 5.1.1, and further that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.2 to 5.3.2 for information. Before I call the motion, would anybody like to pull anything from those items? Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Regarding the, well, what we see as the minutes of your county meeting, the county seems to be from what I'm reading, like they want to build a 39-unit structure, apartment building. So that's one. Could you maybe, I need more information. Like I did, and then possibly they will do the same elsewhere. And I'm wondering, are we in, and we as in we put money into the county, are we in the development business now? Or would that just be sold to a developer and let the developer take all the risks and what have you?
I can answer that, actually. I do sit on the the shortage of outages and the people that need those services. So we're starting with Godridge, and I believe it's a lot more money. I believe the one you're talking about is for Exeter. And I don't have paperwork in front of me, so forgive me. So the first one will be for Godridge, and it's to do with the homeless people and homeless shelters and bringing around and taking care of our fellow man. The second one will be in Exeter the following year, or maybe the year after that, depending how things go. So in that case, we've decided that Exeter will be putting 1 and 2 because they're the second most neediest community. The following year after that, North Huron will be receiving a building 2, an add-on to a building we have here now, because we're third in line. So your tax money's finally being spent all around Huron County, not just in Godridge and surrounding area. But understand, and it's been a long journey, and yes, it's a lot. It sounds like a lot of money, but you are. It's a dignified spend. We're helping the people that need help when they need help, and instead of just doing the same thing over and over again, we're looking to the future, and we're designing buildings that actually have places in them for those people to congregate, start to become part of the community again and move forward. So it is a county-wide now, and North Huron is on there, but not because North Huron is North Huron. It's because we just so happen to be the third most needed place in Huron County, according to the staff of Huron County. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, you have. Yeah, sure.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, yes. Your whole explanation is fine. I'm surprised that, and I know you mentioned it at our last meeting, like you just sort of touched it. I'm just surprised that the county's getting into the development business. I'm looking at that.
Oh, yes,
The purposes,
okay.
the purposes are fine, dignified, all that. I'm not arguing that.
Yep.
But to be in the business, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and we always have been in the business, and it goes long before I was ever on county council, so this is not a new initiative. This is just a further initiative of ones that have been going on. And many, like United Way and everybody is involved. Everybody works together. I think, I forget how many organizations, 4 In Out of the Cold, that type of stuff that are working together. So it is not just a Huron County, but yes, Huron County has been in the building development for a long time. For instance, right here on Patrick Street, if you go to Patrick Street and you turn, that would be east. There's buildings along there. If you come down to Bristol Terrace at my end of town, there's lots of it. So we've been doing it for a long time. It's just a different type of building and a different type of attitude based on what the people that are in the know have realized that will help the people we want to help and not just continue as is.
Okay.
Okay? Anyone else? Anita?
Yes, for correspondence 53.2, the letters from the municipality of Tweed and Township of Ashfield, Colborne, Warreners. I would like staff to send a letter of support for this because the costs are really exceeding the money we are getting from OMAFRA. So if we can send a letter of support, I would appreciate that.
I'm not seeing any objections. I'm seeing a lot of waving yes, so our CEO, I believe, is writing that down to, we don't need to make a motion, do we? For something like that?
Through your worship, I would suggest in terms of your agenda, you do consent, receive up to 5.3.1 and then just pass a separate motion for 5.3.2 directing staff to send a letter of support or pass a resolution of support and for staff to notify.
Okay.
It's a
Okay.
simple amendment.
So I have not asked for a mover or second, so I will go back and change that to, and further that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.2 to 5.1.2 then. Do I have a mover? I need a moving seconder, please. Paul is seconding. All in favor? Carries. Anita, would you like to make a motion for that?
Yes, would you mind repeating that, what you just told me? This
Yeah, that council hereby supports the resolution that has been passed by Township of Ashbrook Colborne Wawanosh, and hereby direct staff to provide a letter of support.
Yes, sounds good. Thank you very much.
I have a mover. Do I have a seconder? Paul seconds. All in favor? Carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, reports, we've gone through that. And we're gonna go to correspondence now. My apologies, we're gonna go to public meetings and hearings and delegations. We have Paul Seabeach and Seabeach and Company, and I apologize if I'm saying that wrong. After 4 years, you'd think I would get it right, wouldn't you, Paul?
Seebach.
Thank you.
I think it's German.
Thank you very kindly. And this is our 2021 audit final statements.
I think we were going to call something up. Yeah. Thanks. So tonight, every year, we present the audit financial consolidated statement. And we also have the statements for the Wingham and Blythe BIA. We are presenting a little later. Normally, we would do this end of May, beginning of June. This one report you're required to prepare is the financial information report, FIR, and that was due the end of August, and that was submitted. Part of the reason a little late, I was away on holidays. I missed the September meeting, first meeting, so as far as the timing and all that, that's all good. Everything's completed. And then we also, the importance of the financial statements, consolidated ones and the FIR is that, they're required by the province, and that's how they see your municipality, township financially, so they use those for that reasons. We also have this report, which I'll probably refer to more than not. Just a few items, like if you were to look at the highlights of the financial statements. When we have our statements, we show a surplus of $1.1 million. That's high. We're required to account for the surplus of different. The main thing is we don't include reserve transfers. So during the year, you transferred $1.5 million of reserves, where we don't show that as an expense. Probably a better number to look at as far as your comparison to your budget, mill rate, et cetera, was you transferred $554,000 to your tax stabilization reserve. And most of that, you've had to report already, was due to capital reports that weren't completed in 2021, postponed to 2022, some one-time grants, and some department surpluses. So during 2021, you spent $1.6 million on capital. You had budgeted $3 million. The projects that were completed were street resurfacing. You bought a new fire department pump truck, new roof at the Blythe Community Center. The project's not completed. You were supposed to, you had planned to do a dechlorination project at the Blythe treatment plant, a tandem truck for Blythe Public Works, and they became 2022. So you didn't spend that money in 2021, so a lot of that was forwarded to reserves. So when you look at your reserves, at the end of the year, they're $16.7 million, up $1.5 million. You had actually budgeted to transfer money out of reserves, but because you didn't do all the capital projects and you had some department surpluses and some unanticipated grants, you were able to put $1.5 million into reserves. What I should say about that, though, even though you have $16.7 million in reserves, 9.4 million of that money is specifically for water and sewer projects. So water and sewer projects are kind of separated from your other activities. So, you know, even though the statements show that you do have the 16 million, 9 of that is allocated to water and sewer projects. And you also, at the end of the year, you hadn't spent, each year the federal government gives you gas tax money for roads, et cetera. You didn't spend all that money, so at the end of the year, there was $462,000 in that sitting aside. And the last item I would mention is, at the end of the year, your debt was $413,000, down from $538,000. You didn't incur any debt during the year. You hadn't planned to incur any debt during the year, so that's a good sign. During the year, one loan was paid off where you made semi-annual payments totaling $35,000, so that helps your cash flow. You don't have that payment anymore. As far as the audit itself, we're issuing a clean, unqualified audit report, so that's positive. As far as conducting the audit, despite COVID, most of it was done on site this year. So if we look at this first statement, I don't know if it can be any clearer, but it's basically your financial statement. So I'll just, it's your balance sheet, shows where you stood financially December 31st. So at the end of the year, you had $17.9 million in the bank. That's up $1.6 million, and that's basically because of your surplus and lower receivables. Your tax receivables are lower, maybe because of COVID. They creeped up a bit last year, but they're down to 485, which is good. Accounts receivable, pretty much the same. They go up and down depending if there's any capital drain, municipal drains outstanding or so forth. Long-term investments, those are just loans you receive from the province to issue tile drain loans, 13,000, so they show as a receivable and also as a debt. So, and then the long-term investment, if you look, it's always the same. That's your cost, your original cost of shares for Westario, representing 7.8%. So that's just the cost of your Westario show. So total assets, $21.4 million up. You can see through the years from 14 million and now it's 21 million. You're just in a stronger cash position with higher reserves, et cetera. So things you owed at the end of the year: accounts payable, 1.2 million. Landfill closure, where we have to show a number of how much money you should have in the bank today to forecast landfill closures. It's low because the Wingham landfill site's projected to be open for quite a while, so it's not an actual, it's just a liability. We're required by the province to show every 3-4 years you get a study done by Burnside to verify that number. Deferred revenue, that's basically a grant you received, 480,000 of, or 460 of federal gas money you didn't spend, so you could spend that money in 2022. And municipal debt, we've talked about that. It went down just by the regular payments. So you can see in the past 5 years, your debt went down from 2 million to 426,000, which leaves you in a good position. Net financial assets, that's basically money you can get your hands on to do projects, be it for water, sewer, or municipal ones. 18.6 million. You can tell how it's gone up from 10 million to 18 million, up 1.7 this year. So it just shows you're in a better cash position. Capital assets, these are your roads, your buildings, etc. And what was added, 1.6. You had budgeted 3 million, and a lot of those projects would have been put forward to this year. So your total capital assets, 49 million. So you end up with your surplus of 68 million, but really the important number is your reserves. You can see 16.7 million. It's gone up from 10 million to 16.7 million. It almost mirrors your bank account, as you've been able to set more money aside. It sits in your bank account, etc. The next schedule is basically your income statement. So to go through that quickly. Still, when you look at this statement, there's a few remnants of COVID. 2021, you have to remember, in the spring of 2021, for the winter, your recreation centers were closed down. Probably less activity in daycare, et cetera. So those numbers are still reflected when you look at the revenue. So taxation, 6.4, basically what was budgeted. And then the other grants are pretty close. Your gas tax grant's a little higher. The ministry increased that. You'll notice county fee subsidies, that's 959,000, budgeted 781. A lot of that was extra money you received from the county to run the daycare center. And then if you look at recreation, it's down, a normal year is 800,000. Last year was COVID, or 2 years ago, 396. This year's 263. That's basically a lot of just the shutdown. Childcare bounced back a bit. Always been around 600, 700,000. When 2020, you were shut down quite a bit, 327, then it bounced back a little bit this year, 557, and the county was good in trying to make up the difference for any, difference between operating charges and what you took in. And then there's bank interest. It's higher than budgeted because you just end up with more money in the bank. And so total revenue, 14.4 million, it budgeted 14.3 and up from last year. Then your expenses, most of your departments were operated at budget or below. When you look at recreation facilities, you'll see it's down because that from the budgeted 1.5 to 1.2, a lot of that was just lower activity. And you see capital expenditures budgeted 3 million, only spent 1.6 million. Transfers to reserves, you budgeted to actually take money out of reserves to do capital projects, didn't do all of them, had some grants, etc. So you're able to put 1.5 million into your reserves. So that's more on a cash basis, but then when you do how we have to prepare the statements, deduct the capital, include depreciation, remove the reserve transfers, you come to the 13.3 million, and the surplus we're reporting $1.1 million. As far as the formal statements, the only schedules I would show would be, may not show them. There is a schedule on the debt, and it just shows, basically now you have 2 loans outstanding. One's 397 due 2026, and one 15,000, one more payment this year. So, and then this year you're only gonna have 1 loan on your books. So that's good news. And then later on there is a schedule on the reserves. It just shows what you started with, what was put in, what was took out. And it shows environmental services, $9.4 million, just to make you aware of that. And it also shows deferred revenue is the federal gas tax money you haven't spent yet. Then the very last statement is the trust funds. Basically, your trust funds are for the cemetery perpetuity fund. When you sell a lot or plot for the cemetery, some of that sales gets set aside, and it sits there, and the income from that is used to operate the cemetery. So there's $548,000 sitting there. During the year, between the perpetual care, the portion of the plots plus the interest earned, $22,000, and that expense is transferred to the cemetery to help pay. The municipality runs the cemetery, and the money transferred from the trust fund helps operate the cemetery. The other 2 statements are the Wingham BIA and the Blythe BIA. The Wingham statements, their big project this year in 2021 was the LED sign. I think it was around 29,000. So when you look at their statement, they actually have more money in the bank, but that sign, part of the sign wasn't paid for until 2022, so it's sitting in payables. And they had they had set aside money to pay for the sign, and 15,000, that was taken out of reserve. So when you look at the income statement, they ended up with a deficit of $10,000 because they spent the 29,000 on the sign, but then they took 15,000 out of reserves to help pay for it, and ended up, their final surplus at the end of the year was 25,000. So the big thing with the Wingham BI was the sign purchase. They did, with COVID over, they did do a few more projects, sidewalk sales, Moonlight sellout, no place like Nome, et cetera. So they were able to do activities to promote the downtown more than the prior year. And the Blythe BIA was a pretty standard year. They basically had a small surplus of $1,000. They have $7,500 in the bank account. We're waiting to get $800 from HST, from the government, for what they'd paid out. The levy was basically the same, $9,700, and they got a county grant for $1,000, and then they basically spent most of the money on their various programs. They're listed: Hometown Holiday Weekend, Artesian Market, bike rack, street signs. So I would say, just in closing, the municipality ended up in a year-end stronger position. Part of that is you do all the capital funding or expenditures you're going to do. One thing when you look in the past few years here, at some point, maybe like 7, 8, X number of years ago, when you bought a new fire truck, you would have borrowed money for it or something, and now you're in a position you don't have to borrow money for a large amount of your capital projects, so that's a good sign of where you are financially. It was, as far as the finance department, everyone knows there was kind of a revolving door in the treasurer position, so should thank Carrie and Donna for all the work they did to help complete the audit. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you. Kelly? I wanted to ask one question. Actually, there's two, but only one comes to mind because I left that little piece of paper on the counter at home. I see there's $30,000 that was to the airport, I believe, in 2020, and then $30,000 carried over to 2021. And maybe I'm just getting a little ahead of the gun, but my question would be, no longer having the airport, would we not be further ahead to shut that part down and transfer that to reserves or something? Or am I just a little too fast on that? Like, there's going to be no airport moving forward. And I apologize, I had it all written down and
No?
the phone rang and then I talked too long and I had to run.
I don't have my whole list of reserves here, but if there is a money set aside for reserves are always, decided by council, so it would just be part of either in the budget to take that money into something else, or it would be, it's not a reserve fund where there is separate money set aside. It's a reserve, so you can change, with council's approval or through a motion or through a budget, you can decide where you'd want that money to go.
Thank you, we'll watch for that. Thank you. Council, go ahead, Deputy Reefside.
I just want to follow up to that question. Are you indicating like you've seen 30, like something in reserve? Is that what you've seen, Reeve? Because
No, there was
the schedule that we have in front of us at the meeting, there is something that's going in, the bending balance of 2021 would be 10,000. So I mean, the council at budget time in December will have to make an assessment of where that 10,000 needs to go, because I mean, as you indicated, that we don't have an airport anymore at this particular point, so
Yep.
council's needing to redirect that at some point. So I don't know if that, is it the reserve your question was, or is it more about operational?
There was maybe operations 30,000, but we're fine then when we go into our budget for next year. Well, I see the CEO was writing that down. We'll have a look at it.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, I know that's exactly right. It's been set aside. I don't know if it was a result of we maybe paved the runway and there's money left over. I'm not quite sure how that money got there, or maybe the sale of the farm. I don't quite
Okay.
remember.
That's okay, thank you. Any other questions? Not, go ahead, Deputy Reefside.
Yeah, I do have a question as it relates to the post-closing liability. So is that number calculated by the engineer? Like, did they give us that number?
Yeah, so they what they do is they decide how much left in the landfill site, how many years. So I think your landfill site is like 70 or 80 years. It's quite a long time. So then they use a discount rate and they say, if it's going to cost so much to close that place in X number of years, how much money do you need now to earn 4% money, to have that much money when you actually close it, and then look after it for the next 20 years?
Right, so I mean, so it is misleading in the sense of it says 300,000 to close that, if you had to close that landfill.
You're right, it would cost more than that.
It'd be like, more like 2 million.
Exactly, but in theory, if you took 300 down and and you accrued interest on it for the next X number of
7 years.
you'd have that money, you'd have that 2 million to pay. And that's
Right.
why it's a hard number, because he gives different scenarios, how much money you need at 2%, 4%, 6%.
Yep.
And then we all know what's happened this year. For a while there, money was 1.9%, and now it's like 4 so it's, and a 2% change like doubles that number, right? Like, it really affects that number when it's so long, so.
Yeah, and the reason I think my question is that that's calculated every 4 years or so?
Generally, what you do is you ask, it costs you money to do that, to ask them to do it.
Obviously.
So then, instead of doing it every year, you do it every 3 or 4 years. And I've had it the odd time, something's happened in between, like it's gonna close earlier, or they find it's gonna cost more to close or something, and that number goes up dramatically, and then it hits your statement. But,
Yeah.
so what happens generally is we just set up a little bit more each year, and we hope that when you get the next one, it's pretty close, so there's not a huge adjustment.
Yeah, I think really my question, my concern is that we're basing it on a report, which we have to base it on based on an engineer's assessment. But what I've come to realize is the numbers seem to be not as conservative as I would have expected. And when I say that, we've indicated, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, I was told the landfill in North Huron at Reed Road and Curry was 100 and would last 100 and something years. Well, it's only been 4 years and now we're telling me it's 70? So we have to recognize that, what we need to do, or we need to establish is there significant changes in how we are managing or diversion rates or something to that effect that's causing these things to occur? And therefore, are we not being as conservative as we should be in the sense of what that value is? I know this is all based on engineers, but so these are not really questions for you. It's more of a comment in general for the rest of council to understand. That says, I think we need to start maybe asking more questions as it relates to the engineers' reports to say, you're saying it's going to last 70 years. Well, you also told us 4 years ago that it was going to last 100. So what is it? And what is the change that we need to talk about? And I think the Director of Public Works has indicated that she's expecting to bring a report to us about landfill. I'm going to say not necessarily us, but council, probably in the next term. And I think that's a realistic question that council needs to start asking these questions wholeheartedly, because we need to understand if that is the reality that we're in.
A good example is like what's happened around you was like the Mid-Huron landfill site. Like, that's a landfill site that was supposed to close like 30 years ago, hung in because of diversion and then closed. And, once it got near the end, they actually could kind of figure out how much money they had to start setting aside to actually do it. So municipalities were setting up, they were setting aside reserves, so when they did finally close it, there wasn't a surprise to anyone. None of the municipalities got a huge adjustment or anything on what they owed. So I agree with you saying, because sometimes it's something so far down the road, you just continually ignore it, but eventually it will happen.
Yeah. Reeve, just another point.
Yes, sorry.
Just another point is, I recognize that 2021, COVID was still a prevalent around our area. I get, and we budgeted, when we were budgeting, we were really expecting it not to be as significant as it was. So I recognize that our surplus, although looks daunting and successful in one respect, it also tells me one other thing, that we've taken potentially more money in taxation for operating the municipality than we necessarily needed, but in reality, that money can be used at a later date from reserve. I just want to recognize that we as council need to be, we need to start maintaining and understanding that our budgets need to be what we can expect to do in a year. I'm more looking at the capital side, because our capital side, we get over-ambitious and we under-deliver. And when you say you want to spend $3 million, that's always great. And then COVID hits or some other issue happens, and we can't. And I mean, I recognize that money we can use later, but that doesn't help the families today in how their taxes are calculated and what they're spending on taxation. So there is a healthy balance that needs to be made as it relates to how we set up a budget. And what I'm talking is, I think we have to start being a little more conservative as to how we're going to accurately picture what work can be done in a 12-month period. Because I think we have to recognize that if we're going to take money from tax people's money today, we need to be able to understand that they are expecting that money to be used in this year. They're not expecting all of our conversations as not for next year or 5 years from now. It's for now. So that's just my comment to council and to staff at this point.
I appreciate that. I'd just like to throw in, and I agree with Deputy Reeve, none of us seen COVID coming. None of us knew what was going to happen. So at the same time, considering what we went through for 2.5 years, I think this council did a great job. We all worked together. We all tried to do the best. And I truly understand what you're saying, Deputy Reeve Saipini. You are right on that. But we just had unfamiliar circumstances over the last 2.5 years. And we did not come back at the last year for this council to say, oh my goodness, we're going to raise it 15% because we goofed everything up. I feel more comfortable knowing you're not doing that to this taxpayer anyway. Go ahead, Deborah. Yep.
And honestly, Reeve, I want to just reiterate, council goes through a whole lot of effort with staff to make this budget. But council isn't the one that monitors it. We monitor it in a sense of we get reports and we get information, but staff are the ones that monitor it and make sure that we're in a good, successful position. So, staff have done their due diligence and their work to make us where we are today. If we weren't where we are today, I would be in there would be a whole lot less problems than we are right now. So, I mean, I thank them wholeheartedly for the work and effort that they have had to deal with over not only this 12 months, but the 12 months before that, and the 6 months before that. So, I mean, recognizing the fact that staff are the ones that are the bearer of the news to council as to how this budget goes and how actuals ring, I think really the wholehearted support of this council is based really on the support that staff give us.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Well, you're off light today.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It's nice to be here in person, too. I should say that.
Thank you very kindly for all you do for us. Okay, moving on to 7, and that would be 7.1.1, consent application for Dayton Farms Limited, 38677 Belfast Road. Is the county planner going to speak to this one?
Jeez.
Yep, she's on her way.
Thank you, because this is right on him. And I-
Thank you for having me this evening. I'm just going to just bring up the presentation. Are we okay to go, Reed?
Yes, you are. I'm-
Thank you. So as noted, this is for file consent application C 80-2022. The subject lands are located at 38677 Belfast Road. The applicant and owner is Gert Datema, and I will note that he is in attendance this evening, the applicant. The subject lands, as mentioned before, are located on Belfast Road. They are designated and zoned agriculture and natural environment. There contains an existing dwelling on the subject property, as well as accessory structures and farmland. The proposed severance is for a surplus farm severance. The following shows the severance sketch as provided by the applicant, showing the area to be severed, again showing the existing dwelling, as well as the accessory structures and the septic tank, and as well as the well. The severed land is approximately 1.7 acres in size, with the retained farmland being just over 98 acres in size. The following shows site visits taken from my site visit that show the area that's to be severed, as well as the retained farmland taken looking south from Belfast Road. In terms of the policy review, as noted in my report, this proposal does meet the criteria in the North Huron official plan for surplus severances. And as well, it does follow the direction in the provincial policy statement, the Huron County and North Huron official plans, which specifically direct that the size of the severed parcel is to be kept to a minimal size needed for the residential purpose and to accommodate the associated servicing of the lot. The application as applied for achieves that policy direction. In terms of public comments, council were provided with correspondence received from one neighbor, so that written comment was included in the agenda. But just to summarize the comment was from a neighbor that was not necessarily in opposition to the severance, but they were suggesting that the proposed severed lot be increased in size to include a portion of the farm to the west of the surplus residence for a potential pasture area, so that it could be used for a farm use. The written comment was again included in council's package. Just to provide some context of what area is being referred to, it is just this area just to the west of the severed parcel. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse there, but just to the west, just that area there. In terms of staff comments in response to this comment, it is planning staff are recommending that the lot size as applied for be maintained and that the lot size does not increase in order to continue to meet the direction of the provincial policy statement, County North Huron official plans that state that the lot should be kept to a minimal size to accommodate the residential use and servicing. Our department is of the position that an increase to the lot size would not follow this direction. In terms of township staff comments, they had no concerns and their comments were taken into consideration for the recommended conditions. In terms of the recommendation, it is recommended that the consent application be approved with the attached conditions, including any additional township conditions. These conditions are again included on the slide as they are with the report. These conditions are all standard conditions. Just noting that there is a condition that speaks to a septic system, pumping the septic system and just ensuring that it is functioning properly, and that an entrance permit, if required for the new entrance, be granted. Otherwise, they are standard conditions. So I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have, and again, noting that the applicant is in attendance this evening.
Thank you very much, Hannah. I'll open it up. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve, and through you, Hannah. I'm all for the severance, and so don't get me wrong there. However, that letter from the neighbor meant something to me, and it, you and the rest of planning staff are screaming for housing, for different needs. You are missing the need of the Amish. You're missing them. And they are in this immediate area. And I personally did not see anything wrong, as long as it was okayed with Mr. Dedema, to add an acre, and add 2 acres, something that gives them an opportunity, if they were to buy it, if one of their families was to buy it, to have a cow and have a horse. They need that, a garden, they need that. The other option, and you are not thinking of the Amish. You are not, and I'm seeing it as we move forward with different situations. And the size, we did one a couple months ago at, what was it, 6 acres? So, yeah, you can increase it. However, there is another option. If the new owner, well, it's all up to the new owner. If, say, an Amish person or family was able to buy the place, and maybe he would consider renting or leasing a couple of acres, if that was made available. Like, these families are leaving because there's no place. There's no place, and here's an opportunity right here. Anyways, that's my thoughts.
Thank you very kindly. Anita?
Yes, thank you, Reeve Bailey. I think this is a great severance. It is it's what the landowner wishes, so I don't think we should interfere with that. That's his question, and we are not asking for anything else. I think it's a pretty straightforward severance.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve. I just have a taxation change questions. When you sever off a property like this, does it then get taxed at a residential rate versus a farm rate? Like, I'm just going to, like, for 100 feet by 300 feet, I pay $5,000. If I can have 8 acres for I just want to know what the taxation, once you turn it into a residence, not a farm anymore, it should fall under residential taxation, should it not?
I would think so. I'm not, well, maybe
There,
have.
there is the treasurer assistant here, she's shaking her head and waving and yes, so,
Okay.
I mean, I don't think that's a question for Hannah, I'm sure
Oh,
it's
yeah,
more
no,
a question
I'm
for the
sorry,
treasurer.
no, I didn't know that. Just so we've done so many of them, I just wasn't sure, I just wanted some clarification on how the taxation changes.
That would be good to know. Somebody over there? Yes. Can't see anybody. No, not yet.
Hear me?
That's
Oh,
it,
That
yeah.
was better. Thank you, nice to meet you. Yes, it depends how MPAC assesses it, but yes, the portion of that where the house is going to be will become residential, and then a parcel will be the farmland. If it was all vacant land before, it'd be taxed at 25% of the residential rate. But now you'll have a home on there, and it will be at the residential rate, and the balance that's left in farming and agriculture, if there's harvesting land, it will be at the farm rate. Is that right?
Thank you very kindly. Any other questions? Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Reeve. I've never been on the other end of this, but what do you tell? What do you tell the farmer who's severing the house off? Do you tell him, do you say, well, it should be this, or suggest it? Or do you give some allowance to let him or her decide, well, I kind of would be okay if it did this? Like, what do you do?
So through the Reeve, so yeah, typically when we have the pre-consultation meetings with applicants, it's ultimately the choice of the applicant how they choose to apply. What we do tell them though is what the direction is in the policy documents and how our department would recommend. And the reason we do that is so they know that information up front before they apply. But we also reiterate that it is the decision of council and it is your choice to apply as you would like. But again, our recommendation will be that the size is kept to the minimal size.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, Deputy Reeve Site.
So just to reiterate, the question is, your recommendation is based on the provincial policy statement that has been handed down from the Ontario government. Is that correct?
Yes, through the REIV. Yes, that is correct. There is language in the provincial policy statement that speaks directly to minimal size for the residents and for appropriate servicing, so well and septic in this
Right.
case.
So, I mean, I am, at the end of the day, an application is put forth by an applicant. And my comment is, as Councillor Van Hittersum is eloquently put, is that they're asking for something from us. In essence, is what they're asking for. And I mean, I don't know where it is our job or position to tell that applicant that you should have more or less or whatever the case may be. I mean, they have a decision as to how they want to market that farm, that severed residence, if they would like to have that residence sold to whoever they would like or rented to somebody. That is personally their opportunity to do how they want to manage their finances, and nowhere should the municipality be involved in that discussion, in my opinion. So, I mean, if as you've indicated, so I'm going to ask the question a different way. If the applicant would have come back with the applicant with that additional acreage, would your recommendation be any different than it is today?
Right, so through the REIV, I'm understanding that your question is if the applicant had submitted it to include that extra area.
Yes.
So it would have came to council, they would have considered it with that larger size, and our recommendation as the department would be that there would be a condition attached to reduce the size, to remove that, to reduce the lot, to keep it the minimal size. That would be what our recommendation is. It would still be for approval, subject to, we would recommend that council also dash an additional condition. to
Yeah,
reduce
so
the
what,
size.
as what I'm hearing is that the county's recommendation would be the same. It would still be then up to us to decide whether that is equivalent, whether we want to go against the county's planner's decision, recommendation, or to go back to what your recommendation is. So, I mean, regardless of how the applicant provided it, your recommendation hasn't changed, and that's really where I wanted to get to a point where we've made that, and I'm back to the conversation. The applicant has made his application or their application, and I'm completely in support of their application as it's been presented.
Anyone else? Not seeing it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
But
ahead.
sometimes we need to apply common sense to our decisions. We should do that all the time. And if the applicant, I have no idea what Gert, you would be saying. I'm just saying as a maybe. Like for me, if I bought that property and I was going to sever that off as a surplus, knowing the area, knowing the situation, I would have no trouble adding at least an acre. It gives them something to live on. It's not that they're going to become county is so afraid of a mini farm starting up. And, oh man, we've talked about that so often. Anyways, the Nutrient Management Act settles that one, so you've got no argument in that department. But I would be thinking of what does North Huron need? We have need out there. Like, you were always talking about, well, we're third in line because we're third in need of an apartment building. You're thinking that. I'm not disagreeing with it. You're thinking it. Well, I'm thinking this, and no one else is. And it disturbs the heck out of me. It's a simple little thing. Now, if Gert Denema decide, no, it's going to be this, fine. Decision is made. But when county says, you can do anything you want, but this is what it should be, well, that scares people off. It does. And I have no trouble going against county. I have no trouble going against your decision, Hannah, if I feel that it could be a little bit different. We should all be in that area that, use common sense, and we go with your decision 99, probably 100% of the time, but there's no problem in a common sense situation. This would help. Let's do it. You want help for your things. Here's a chance of helping another area of social need. That's enough said for me, but I'm just hoping I'm getting across to you a little bit.
Thank you. Go ahead, Anita.
Yes, thank you. In the end, it's all about economics, and I don't know if adding an acre or 2 acre would make any difference. In the end, the parcel, if it's going to be sold or rented out, it will go to the highest bidder, and if that's Amish or if that is somebody from Kitchener or from Blythe, it wouldn't make any difference if we add land. We don't cater to just one part of the municipality.
Gives them an opportunity.
Not.
No, we're not fighting.
So the applicant has asked for this. The applicant is sitting here. He's not stood up and said anything differently. So if everybody's okay, that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby recommends approval of the consent application file number CO 80-2022, applicant owner Dietmar Farms Limited, CO Gert Dietmar, sorry. A property description, concession 10 East, part lot 29, East Wawanash Ward, Township of North Huron, 38677 Belfast Road, with the conditions set out by the Huron County Planner and the development report presented by Hannah Holman, Planner, on the September 19th, 2022 council meeting. Do I have a mover? I have Anita moving. Seconder, please. Kevin seconds. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. Thank you very kindly, Hannah. Okay, moving on to 7.1.2, electronic meeting request. That the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the clerk dated September 19th, 2022 regarding the electronic meeting request for the October 3rd, 2022 regular council meeting for information purposes. And further, that the council hereby authorizes for the Monday, October 3rd, 2022 regular council meeting to be held through electronic means. Could I have a mover? I have Rick moving, Paul seconding. Open for questions, comments, or concerns. Go ahead, Anita.
Yes, thank you, Eve Bailey. I see all these opportunities for the theater in Wingham, and I would like to know what is going on in Blythe over the winter. Is there, all the businesses are struggling to get along because the theater is outside. Is there anything planned for Blythe for the winter time so that there will be more people coming into town?
That's a separate issue. We will have the Blythe, we will request the Blythe Theater to come back, to send us information on that, because I believe staff has heard that as a request.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep, thank you.
Yep, no problem. So just going back to 7.1.2, we all know this is being done because the Almost Famous players that should be on this stage and not us are requesting to use their stage again. So, any questions, concerns, or comments? Not seeing any, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. 7.1.3, council remuneration and expenses bylaw. That the joint, I might throw this open for questions and comments first. What do you think? And then we'll see about the motion. Okay, so I'm going to throw this open. We've all had time to read it. Who would like to speak to it? Wild crowd tonight. Go ahead. You want to go, Trevor?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. My comment is simple in the sense that everybody is going to, the word of the story is going to be, well, council gets to determine what their new pay is. Regardless of whether you're in council or not, the North Huron Council is not the only one that has to do this. Every council in Ontario has to deal with this conversation after every 4 years. And you know, the part of it is I take great pain in when people say counselors get paid, and what do they provide us? I take great offense to some of the comments that are held. As you can tell, in this municipality, we have 6 individuals running for councillor in Wingham, 4 individuals running for Reeve, 2 councillors acclaimed in Blythe, and 3 councillors running in the East Wellmarsh ward. We have almost 4,000 residents more. Like, I mean, we have a lot more residents that are potentially eligible to be councillors. They're not lining up the door to do this job. And why is that? Well, I don't know about anybody else sitting on this stage, but for the most part, it's a thankless job from residents, from whoever, who believe that we are may or may not doing the best interest of them. But one of the concerns that I have is when we do this job, we are taking away from things that are also important to us. Family, social events, all those things that we are giving up to do the things that we need to do as a responsible individual that respects the democratic process and wants to go ahead and do what this community so desperately needs, is people to talk about how we want our future to be look like. So when I look at these numbers and I look at the fact that North Huron is lower in the median scale, well, what's the incentive? What's the incentive for an individual to come out and take this headache? Because it is a headache. I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I go home with a significant headache most evenings. And not because it's a bad conversation or not because we're not, but we're all trying to do the best and we're trying to remember what we're here for. And that's the oath of office that we take, to do the best we can for the North Huron as a whole. So, I mean, I know what the people's response is going to be when we talk about raising the price or raising the cost of council remuneration and stipend. It's well, all you're going to do is raise our taxes in order to pay for it. And my comment is just this: no. This council, as well as every other council in the province of Ontario, need to figure out how do we make this accountable to the residents, but also in the sense of try to figure out how we can make this role attractive to the whole demographic of the municipality. And that's reality. That's with every job in Ontario we have to deal with right now. This is not any different. So I just want to make sure and reiterate to the residents who are potentially watching this, that this is something that every municipality needs to do. And you wouldn't want the actual new council coming into it, because we may not be the new council. I can be very frank with that. I have no idea how this is going to go, and good luck to everybody. But we need to ensure that in 4 years from now, people need to talk about, is this a role that is actually worth doing? And you're not doing it for the money. At least I'm not, and I'm sure if I look around, I'm sure there's a lot of things we could do that would probably make us more money and less headaches. So I think people need to respect the fact that this is a job that is a part-time job. Cities pay full-time wages for these jobs. Yes, they're bigger places, but they're full-time jobs. I have a full-time job on the side of this, as many of the other ones do. I'm sorry about that. So, my conversation is more about the context of this change in value. And I'm only one person, but I think we need to make it attractive, and we need to be at least in the ballpark. And based on what I looked at these numbers, we're not even in the ballpark. And we wonder why it's hard to get people to do this type of role. I appreciate staff pulling this information together and really showing us a real eye-opener as to where we have been and where we are as it relates to other municipalities in Huron County. And I think we have to look at this seriously. But my obligation is to the residents is to say, whatever we think we're going to do here, we need to find some savings somewhere else to compensate for this change. That is my thinking, that we have to make common sense decisions. As Councillor Palmer's very adequately said, common sense says, we need to do a job, here's the job we're going to do, how do we pay for that job effectively and fiduciarily in this response? We find savings elsewhere in our budget to save for these prices. That's my push to the rest of council and the councils in the future. Thank you so much, Reeve.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to this? Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. I agree with Deputy Reeve Sipes, but I'd also like to say that I'm not going to hang my head low because of the pay we have. It's minimum, and of course we're not here for the money because there's not enough of it. And a little bit of increase to keep up with other municipalities makes an awful lot of sense, and the cost to the municipality is totally minimum. Like the cost of council paying us is less than the increase staff gets every year because of cost of living and wage increases. And we're not saying, well, we got to save money to pay for that. So this extra, was it 15,000 that would be? That's just the cost of doing business, and our job is vital here. Vital. And people have to understand that. Maybe we have to understand that. Like without council, the business does not carry on. And so there's a cost to that. And we are not, staff did a good job of pulling out the numbers. I agree with them. It's a little increase to help the new people or whoever is on next time. And I'm happy for it.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve. I want to thank staff for putting this together. I had no idea as to other municipalities as far as their remunerations for the council. And the changes that are recommended are still well below average. I'm seeing municipalities here that have very little, half the infrastructure that we have to manage, having a much larger council remuneration, and mayor and mayor and deputy mayor and that. It's hard not to paint everything with the same brush. We're having trouble trying to find staff at competitive wages, and we try to be in the middle and still have a heck of a time finding staff. I see it no different with councillors as well. There was no one else ran in Blythe. It's just not something that people would take into consideration for what the remuneration was. So I wholeheartedly support this resolution.
Thank you. Anyone else? Paul?
I hate to be the sticker in the mud here, but I was opposed to the last one that we took 4 years ago, and I feel I have to go the same way here. sure, we have a job to do, and it's expected of us, and a little bit more money. Okay, I'm sorry, I've been talking to the people around town, wherever, and I wish this came out a month earlier, and then you might have been able to ask that question and whatnot. Do you think we're worthy of it more? Yeah, hearing some of the reasons that each of you were given, okay, but I feel I can't go along with this, and I'm asking for a recorded vote. Thank you, Reeve.
Recorded vote it shall be. Anyone else? Well, I'm going to tell you from my point of view, this council, and I sat on another council, have never worked harder or done more in recorded history of North Huron, and separately before that. And I want to thank all the council members for that. And there were some hard decisions to make, and we made them. And as it was stated earlier, we are not gouging. We're sitting in the middle of the road just like our staff. Our staff are sitting at the middle of the road too, and they know that. They can go elsewhere for more money tomorrow. But they stick with us because we've got a good working relationship here. But the most important part is at the end of this 4 years, my God, we made a difference. We have moved forward, and there will be lower taxes, and there will be water running in East Wawanosh, not in our neighboring communities that, I think one of the guys there got $35,000. I was a little taken back. But anyway, we deserve it. We worked hard. Who's ever here in the next 4 years, because there is quite a race going on, you deserve it too. So I'm with it. I will not work cheaper tomorrow than I did yesterday. It's just kind of a golden rule of mine. Okay? Nobody works cheaper tomorrow than yesterday. And if you're going to, you want to get your gas half price, your tax half price, your groceries half price. It isn't going to happen. So I think it's a good move. I appreciate the staff bringing such a great document forward showing all the information. Having said that, would anybody else like to speak? Not seeing any, I don't think I read the motion, did I? Okay, here we go. That the joint report of the clerk's administration as assistant and the clerk dated September 19th, 2022, titled Council Remuneration Expenses Bylaw, be received for information purposes. And further, that the draft remuneration expenses bylaw attached as application A to staff report CL-2022-12 be presented at the October 3rd, 2022 regular council meeting for adoption. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin moving. I need a seconding. All in favor?
Recorded vote.
Oh, I do apologize. Sorry, Paul, you did say that. I hand it over to the assistant clerk.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Councillor Sype?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
No.
And that carries.
No, Reeve Bernie Bailey.
Oh, sorry, Reeve, yes.
She left me out again. I'm going to cry.
Sorry. And how do you vote, Reeve Bailey?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries 6-1.
Thank you kindly. Okay, Finance Department, 7.2.1, audited financial statements. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the adoption of the 2021 audited financial statements for the Township of North Huron, Wingham BIA and Blythe BIA, as presented by Seabach and Company at the September 19th, 2022 regular council meeting. Do I have a mover? I have Paul moving. Seconder, please. Second time. Seconder, please. Anita seconds. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. Recreation and Community Services, we have no report. Public Works, we have no report. Fire Department, we have no report. Actually, in the fire, yeah, I'll do it during the mayor's, or the Reeves report. Office of the CAO, we have no report. Correspondence, we have none. Council reports, Reeves activity report. Well, I just want to say for those that have not reached out yet, The Vance Fund still has funding opportunity for different areas, especially recreation. So if anybody knows anyone that has a project, any personal person that has a project, I believe it's got to be in by October 7th. You can get it through our site, our North Huron site, and fill out the forms and send it in. Please take advantage of this. This will happen every year. I have to admit, when we reviewed it, nobody had asked anything at the time for recreation. This is a roughly $400,000 a year fund that has to be given away every year and used every year. And it's the first time in my life that I had $100,000 that nobody else wanted. So I sure hope somebody comes along so I have a perfect track record of everybody took the money and apply for something on that. So reach out to anybody, and anybody listening, please, please step forward. I would also like to state that the Huron County Emergency Services has a new boss. Chad Krieger, our Deputy Fire Chief, has taken on the county role. I believe he starts shortly. He's still going to be with us, but I wish him all the best of luck. He'll do a great job, we know, because anybody that's worked with our fire department or Chad himself knows the dedication that those ladies and gentlemen have for our community. I think that pretty well ties it up for me for this this week, so I'm going to open it up to council. Second. Council reports on anyone sitting on a committee.
Anita has her hand up.
Anita, go ahead.
The Wingham and Area Health Professionals Recruitment Committee had their meeting on September the 12th. We had a presentation about the shortage of nurses, doctors, lab technicians, x-ray technicians. It was great. The presentation was forwarded to the Economic Development Committee. The closures in the hospitals right now weren't really a doctor's problem, but it was more the nurses shortage. People are working really hard on it. There is all kinds of programs that they're using right now to keep our emergency rooms open. The Township of North Huron, the Economic Development Committee had a meeting as well. They had saw the same presentation. Everybody was really impressed with it, and hopefully we can bring it on our website for some more information for everybody to assess. On the Economic Development meeting, we also had a presentation from our Economic Development Director, and we are working on that to have that on our website as well, because it has a lot of information about housing, vacancy rate, all kinds of very interesting things about our community.
Yes, it did, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a great meeting.
Anyone else? Not seeing any?
Yep.
Rick?
I sorry, Rick, go ahead.
Yeah. In regards, through you, Reeve, in regards to the CHIP meeting that I sit on, we, if you remember, we did a report on Officer West Coast, and people had to kind of sign off on it. Apparently in Hensel, somebody stole them. So he's probably in somebody's rec room somewhere. Just thought I'd make that comment.
Pretty young again. Oh, I didn't say that out loud, did I? Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, Reeve, I just want to, under council members' report, I would like to just make mention of the volunteer fair that was held at the Knights, the William Columbus Center not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before that, in conjunction with the United Ways campaign kickoff. The connectors are having a follow-up meeting tomorrow night that I will be sending in my comments. I know Councillor Heffer will probably be attending that meeting. As I have Police Services Board, I will not be, but I will be sending in my comments. Wholeheartedly, I think that was a smashing success from what had transpired. There was a lot of concern I know I'm sure that there's a lot of community connectors, volunteers that had some sleepless nights wondering how many people would actually show up to the volunteer fair. And I would suggest that we had between 27 and 30 community-minded groups that were at the fair. And I would say, without having a count, but, you know, based on what I seen walk through the door as I was there, as Councillor Heffer was there as well, and the Reeve was also there, I would suggest that we had probably more than 150 people that probably went through there. A lot of those service groups got, 3 and 4 new potential members and contact information. So, I mean, I think it was a win-win for them, as well as a win for the community connectors and what they're trying to accomplish by bringing groups and individuals together. I did want to mention, I was not able to attend, but I was invited to the Vol Welcome Week. The library put on a welcome week for new residents to Huron County, not necessarily immigration, but just new residents to the municipality and to the county, to have conversations and meet neighbors and just a fun night. I want to appreciate the work that Gurdeep and Trina did Trina Huffman, who's the branch manager of the Huron County Chamber at London at the library. The work that they did in order to promote that in our community I believe is an excellent thing that we were able to. It was a county welcome week as well, so I mean it coordinated quite well with that. So I do want to say that. The other thing I did want to mention as my council report is the BIA. The Wingham BIA has had another busy year. They are working with. Currently, right now, they're working to have a discussion as to whether they're bringing back general meetings to their repertoire. Right now, we're having one meeting a month, and there was some question of whether we need to bring back the general meeting to allow it to be more open to members of the BIA. The BIA is going through their survey process to find out whether that's something that is warranted or needed, and they will be bringing that back to probably to the next council at the time of when they get the information, because as everybody knows, that all communities cease after October 24th, and then all those committees have to be reassigned. So I mean, they're going to come back with those conversations. So, but there's lots of things going on with the BIA and that support. So I want to just bring that to council's information.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone want to, comments by members? Go ahead, Paul.
Yes, thank you, through you, Reeve. Yeah, just follow up to Trevor there. I was able to get up after BIA meeting to the get-together they had at the library with Trina, and they definitely do want to follow up there. They had a bunch of people come from Lucknow, and they all want to be able to do this again. So that's a real plus to get a new thing going like that for the newcomers to the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with comments? Go ahead, Kevin, and then over to Chris.
Thank you, Reeve. I'd just like to take this opportunity to sing the praises for the Huron County Thrashers Association and to the support that was given by the Blythe Lions and the Blythe Legion and the church auxiliaries and all the volunteers that it takes to put on that wonderful production. I want to thank them for putting the pulse back into our little town. It has been, was sadly missed for a couple of years, and I can say on a personal note, I was greatly appreciated of everything that was going on. It was, I thought it was well attended. I'm glad it's back, and I just want to thank them for their service.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the Belgrave School Fair. It's on Wednesday, the 21st. If you're able to pop around and see the kids in action, I guess. So that includes all the kids from, public school kids from the neighboring schools. So it's the 100th anniversary, so it's a big deal. My job is in the loony bin, and some people say that's quite appropriate. Anyways, if you can come out, that would be good.
Thank you kindly. Go ahead, Rick.
Yes, see you, Reeve. This morning, we held a wreath laying ceremony for Her Majesty. Just thought I'd mention it. At 11 o'clock, not with the Ford government, with this 1 o'clock, it confuses me. Anyway, that's my comment.
Thank you, and it's great that you did, too. Okay, nobody else? Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, I just wanted to, follow up as Councillor Faulkner, though, I mean, it was a great event. Me and my family partaked in the event. I had been there without my family previous, and but in order, my young children, they found something that they always enjoyed. They always had. My little daughter, Harper, she really enjoyed the blacksmith. Yeah, sorry, blacksmith. She talked the ear off the blacksmith for about 25 minutes, and I mean, there was. I honestly can say, if there was something there, if you couldn't find something there to entertain you, you are really sadly mistaken in the sense of having young family. The rain was a little bit surprising. I mean, at one point, but I mean, at the end of the day, I think it was a great event. And the Huron County Pioneer Thrashers, it's funny because I was there, and I'm pretty sure everybody could tell that I wasn't a farmer, and it had nothing to do with farming. And I was watching the Thrashers, the Thrasher machine, and this gentleman come up and stand right beside me. He goes, "You have no idea what you're looking at, do you?" And I said, "No, I don't." So you telling me how this thing works and how this all works, and explaining it to me, and just being, it was one of those things where all of those people who are explaining those types of equipment are all volunteers. Like, they're there just because they love agriculture and they love how what it means to Huron County and what it means to them. So I appreciate that gentleman. I can't even remember his name at this point, but I mean, I appreciate the gentleman taking the time to tell somebody who is not a agricultural aficionado to let me learn something in the day and not just my kids. So I want to appreciate that, and I wanted to just thank again. The Blythe Firefighters Association, as they amassed a significant attendance at their breakfast, both on the Saturday as well as the Sunday. I think what I was told is that normally the Sunday is the bigger crowd, and they were concerned about that because Saturday was a massive crowd. So, and I mean, I think it was bigger, but I think, again, they were able to succeed, and I think the community and the Firemen Association succeeded in providing a great service to the community in the surrounding area. So I appreciate them for that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing any. Notice of motion. Not seeing any. Bylaws. Before I read the parking bylaw out, I'm just wondering, we had a presentation earlier on our 2-minute notice. I'm wondering if council would rather not defer this, but send this back to staff for a second look. I'm going to go to Kevin first, then Trevor.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve. This is to probably to staff. I do agree it should come back. I'm just curious as to us having a bylaw for a timed parking when we have no enforcement. So a rule without any enforcement. We don't have a meter maid going around chalking tires to make sure someone's been there for 2 hours, so it has no teeth. We couldn't enforce it if we tried. So why would we have that in our policy? Anything that we couldn't enforce. I could see it, like, overnight parking stuff for the wintertime, but As far as putting up a no parking sign, that should be the only control we have of Main Street, of parking anywhere, other than for safety.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pat, I will get to you, or
Jamie?
Jamie, I'll get to you in a second. I'm just going to hear out the councillors, please. Trevor?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Councillor Faulkner's made a good point, but I mean, I think that's in reality, the size of our municipality, pretty much every bylaw that we have is based on a complaint-driven process. I mean, if you have a complaint that somebody's parking there more, you're to put in a complaint, and then the property standards and bylaw enforcement officer is to follow up on that. Parking is a significant issue. I mean, I think this council has been more than aware that, when there was some issues or some concerns about parking on County Road 25. I mean, that came to this council, if not this council, the council before that, where there was some complaints and driven to municipal council and bylaw enforcement and obviously the county as well, because it's a county road. So I can understand that. I honestly want to thank the Blythe Festival in the sense of providing some information and feedback as to, about what their concerns are. I think they're I honestly do. I think they're valid. I think they're, I would be more apt to say if this bylaw, if the 2-hour parking bylaw was between 8 and 5 or 8 and 4 or something to that effect, then, you're taking away from the issues in the sense of what maybe Blythe Festival is concerned about in the 4 hours where it's around a performance and that. I don't know what staff's thoughts, so I mean, I'm indefinitely in support of hearing, sending it back to staff, having staff provide some comment as to what their thoughts are on this, and bringing it back. But I mean, I think, there was definitely no intention, I think, from a staff perspective or a council to deter economic development in the town of Blythe. I don't think that was not a concern at all, and from at least I didn't honestly think of it that way. And I mean, I appreciate Rachel from the Blythe Festival bringing it to our attention, and we can hopefully remedy whatever situation or issues we need to do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reeve.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Yeah, I think staff has to reconsider before you come back to it, before you come back to us. That I'm very grateful for Ms. King to bring that forward. I wasn't thinking about it in that regard. Blythe is a special situation with the theater. 2 hours doesn't cut it. There we go. And even our famous players, I'm not sure when they play, if it's evenings or is it okay after 6, then it's probably okay. But anyways, Blythe is unique, and I think we need to cater to that, and it would be silly to restrict any parking along the street there for that. We need 4 hours, like elsewhere in the bylaw there, it says no more than 6 consecutive hours, but it's important here for Blythe, at least.
We're also keeping in mind there are shopkeepers on that main street that have to make a living, so we have to take care of them too. It's not just a one-way street. Go ahead, Kevin.
Through you, Reeve, I have a question for staff. Our bylaw officer, it states in here that reporting provisions and penalties, and our bylaw officer whoever's responding to these requests for removal of parking, has to be an officer under the Provincial Offences Act and the Highway Traffic Act. I don't think we have a bylaw officer that is sworn in as a highway traffic enforcement officer, as far as I know.
We'll have Jamie speak to all that now, if you can, Jamie. Thank you kindly. Hello? Not yet.
Hello? Okay.
Yep.
Through Reeve Bailey. So the 2-hour parking has been enforced or in place since 2012. There are concerns on both sides business owners that would prefer parking not be extended past 2 hours, as they find there's people just parked there for hours on end. So there are other areas to park, both in Wingham and in Blythe, in lots, to have an extended stay and shop in their downtowns. So there's opportunity to park elsewhere apart from just the downtown cores. The Blythe BIA actually brought up concerns about wanting parking to get moved off the main roads to like the surrounding areas. So trying to compromise for business owners and other events, this keeping it at the 2 hour kind of set minimum made sense. That was why I left it as is since 2012. As far as the officers go, the chief building official does fall under an official, as an officer. Under the Highway Traffic Act, even I do.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Follow-up, Kevin?
Yes, through your, Jimmy, since 2012, how many tickets have we handed out? How many enforcement tickets, how many court offenses have we gone through?
Through Reeve Bailey, I can look into that. I don't have that information on hand.
You've never issued one, and you're an officer, and your building official is the other officer. You know,
No, I've never issued that because we had to buy law enforcement before, but I wasn't required to do so. Like if traffic needs to be stopped, I'm allowed to do that under the Highway Traffic Act.
No, but on parking tickets. Does the municipality even have a book of parking tickets?
Yes, we do, sir.
You do? Okay.
So again, I'm going to think that maybe from what I've heard, that maybe we should just send this back and just have I mean, if Jamie has spoken to everybody, I don't know, Jamie. We have a concern that's legitimate, and the Blythe Theater is unique, and the Blythe Theater draws the crowds in that the Main Street need to stay in business. Yet the business owners there don't seem to want the cars to be there. I'm a little confused on that, because, I mean, the Blythe Theater is the one thing that Blythe is known for. So I'm not understanding in my head, and I'm a guy that used to have businesses on a main street, 5 of them in Huron County at one time, and I can't see why I'd want to deter anybody from going to the theater and later grabbing a pop in my variety store. So I'm having a difficult time, and I'm not sure how to handle this, because I can see both sides. So can council help me a bit? Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah,
And then I'll
through you,
come to you,
Reeve.
Trevor.
In regards to parking, they put an expensive traffic light there at the drugstore is, because that's a municipal parking lot across the road.
Mm-hmm.
Just as a comment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the answer. And we got maybe a potential parking lot down around the corner
Through time, yeah.
through time, so.
So there will be alleviation through time once we move on it. Good point. Trevor?
Yeah, and Mike, I think I'm going back here as to my comment. In Schedule C, the 2-hour parking is prohibited only between 9 and 6, Monday to Friday, or Monday to Saturday. So if you have, I mean, if we have a show or whatever at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, 2 hours isn't even prohibited. Because after 6 o'clock, it's not you're allowed to park there more than 2 hours. So, I mean, I guess I'm concerned in the sense that if there's a matinee, I guess there potentially could be a concern. But I mean, as I've heard the Director of Public Works, this has been in effect since 2012. And we haven't seen many changes, and again, the last 2 years is not an indication because of COVID, and they haven't had anything in the theater as a whole. So, I mean, but we also didn't have any issues when the theater was running. I mean, I never think, nothing came to our desk or our saying that we needed to change the parking lot because there was a problem. I mean, so when as I'm communicating, and I said I thought maybe that 9 to 6 would be a good idea, it's already there. I mean, I missed that page in the bylaw, so I'm not sure what else we can do. And honestly, is a sense to right back to the Councillor Faulkner's conversation, if there is a concern with resident or whoever that's parking there longer than 2 hours, put in your complaint. We will deal with the complaint process and the enforcement of the bylaw as necessary. But as Councillor Faulkner so adequately put, we don't even know how many people we actually even, and this parking bylaw is going to be so hard because by the time we get a bylaw enforcement over there to check it, they could have moved. And again, you're chasing your tail anyways. So I recognize that I still do want to thank the Blythe Festival for their comments. I mean, I think they're valid. I don't want to disown what they said because I think that they do have a real concern. I think we can mitigate those concerns by reiterating that restricted piece is there, so you're not a concern if you have an 8 o'clock or a 7:30 show. There's not an issue there. And we can also reiterate to them in the sense that if there isn't ever a concern, that there is a complaint-driven process that deals with that process. So I don't see it to be an issue, and until the residents and the Main Street, Queen Street business owners tell me there's a problem, I'm not willing to think about maybe changing it now.
So I just kind of want to add my thought in here. If we leave it in place and we're openly saying we're not going to enforce the law, I don't think that's a good situation. I would like to cleanse this if we can, and I'm hearing that, as Jamie had said, if maybe we could speak with the theater and the BIA groups together, and make it known that we have the new parking lots coming, and I'm just not comfortable with, as a council, saying, let's leave it on the books and knowing that we're not going to fulfill it, because sooner or later it's going to be fulfilled and it's going to be before us again, so I think we should deal with it. Again, council's decision, but I personally would request that we have Jamie meet with both groups and discuss a little farther. I believe, Trevor, you had your hand up?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll go to you, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, the Blythe BIA and the festival, the representatives on the Blythe Festival are on the BIA. So they've had this conversation. They were a part of the conversation about parking when they brought their initiative to the council for sidewalks and their whole parking initiative. Mm-hmm. So they're more than aware of where parking is a problem in the downtown core. And I don't think there's anybody here, including me, never said that we would not enforce the bylaw. What I'm saying is the bylaw is only enforceable by complaint driven. We do not have a bylaw enforcement officer driving around Blythe or Wingham checking parking and keep an eye on parking. It's a complaint driven process. It's been that way at least since I've been a councillor and probably before that. So I'm not sure we're looking to change that process because that's going to hire another staff member. So until I think what staff have brought us, based on my review and based on my reevaluation of what the concerns of Blythe Festival have been, I think this does solve our problem. This solves what they need. They're just. I think we just have to make sure that they recognize that it shouldn't be a deterrent to what they're expecting.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Reeve. I don't know if this muddies the situation, but I could see it. There's another sign underneath, not enforced during showtime, or worded any way you want. But try to exclude the enforcement aspect of the 2 hours and have it only during showtime, where it can be any. Say 6 hours if you want.
Okay.
But that's a way around it.
Okay, thank you very kindly. So I think what we'll do then is we'll just call the motion and we'll just float it. It goes up or it goes down. If it goes down, we'll have the staff look. into it further. We've had a good, robust conversation about it, and if it passes, then it passes, and we move forward. So, traffic bylaw, that the bylaw number 92-2022 being a bylaw of the Township of North Huron to provide regulation on the control of traffic on the highways, roads, streets, crest.
You're reading the traffic one?
Oh, sorry.
Parking.
Oh, sorry, I got ahead of myself. We're going to be out of here early, but somebody stopped me. That the bylaw number 91-2022 being a bylaw of the Township of North Huron to provide regulation and enforcement of parking on the highways, roads, streets, crescents, and boulevards under the jurisdiction of the Corporation of the Township of North Huron be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, and signed by the Reeve and clerk and engrossed in the bylaw books. Do I have a mover?
So move, Reeve.
Trevor moves it, seconded by Paul Heffer. All in favor? That motion actually failed. Have we ever had a motion fail before?
Well, it was 3
Did you
to
vote?
3. Did
Yeah.
you vote?
Oh, no, I'm not voting for it, no.
So it failed.
So it failed.
So, I'm going to turn to my CO and say, do we need another motion, or do you just want to go back and see if we can rework this with your staff?
Yeah, well, I would suggest at this point, you could consider a motion directing staff to meet with the Blythe Business Improvement Association, Blythe Festival, to discuss parking matters on the main street, something of that.
Yep. Good thoughts. And if you, when you're done there, if you want to read that out, thank you.
So I have that staff be directed to meet with the Blythe BIA and Blythe Festival to discuss parking issues on the main street and report back to council.
Okay. Should we put something about a resolution in there? Kevin, did you have a thought?
Oh, just a thought, yeah, you're engaging the BIA, the business owners. The ones that are using the parking are the general public. You're missing a whole group of people that might have a say in the matter.
Okay.
If the business people don't, if the business community doesn't want anyone parking on Main Street, then like you said, that's ludicrous to me, but,
So I'm hearing when we're doing this, you'll want a public consultation on it.
well, I just don't think it's just up to the
Yep, I agree with you.
one section of the population to.
And that'll give council a chance to also show what we're doing with the land that we own around it and how we're developing more parking. Excellent
Well,
idea.
Other than just removing the 2-hour parking, or I don't. I can see the point in both of them, but if we're not going to be, actively walking up and down the street every afternoon, I don't see how we can, it's doable.
Okay. Jamie, you wanted to say something?
Yes, thank you, Reeve Bailey. If you're going to suggest that the public and the Blythe BIA and the Blythe Theater Group, I would also suggest that you also bring in the Wingham BIA and any Wingham organizations as well that may want a chance to add some kind of communication as well. Because this is for the entire North Huron, it's not just Blythe and Wingham. It would be required for both of them to be present, and anyone else in the community.
There's 8 shows here during the day.
Yeah, but she's saying it's for both towns.
Yeah, but I'm agreeing with her saying that
Yep.
there's, even has that problem out here, not this theater, it's the same as.
Yep. Okay. Okay, let's have a public meeting on this. Let's engage everybody and let's bring this one to an end too. Okay? And I see, okay, so if you want to read that back again?
Okay, so based on the discussion there, I've changed the motion a little bit. So that staff be directed to meet with the Blythe BIA and Wingham BIA, Blythe Festival staff, and other community groups in North Huron to discuss parking issues on the main streets and report back to council. And further, that staff conduct a public consultation regarding on-street parking.
Good with that, folks? Can I get a mover and a seconder, please?
I'll move it.
I have Chris moving, seconder is Kevin. All in favor?
Oh,
Carries.
go ahead. I'm fine.
Oh, sorry, no, go, did you want to speak? I thought you were putting your
No,
hand
I
up.
wanted to say some, the motion's passed, that's fine. So I'm not against it. I think we've just extended the timeline of when this council is going to actually have any decision on this parking bylaw. Because, I mean, I personally have to say is that public consultation is you get the bylaw, or you get the bylaw like everybody else in the council meeting, and you can provide your public feedback on that bylaw as the Blythe Festival did. I think you're going to get very little, if anybody, providing any feedback as to the parking bylaw, and that's my opinion. I think we've extended something that we really didn't need to, but I will support council's direction.
Thank you kindly, and I believe we moved that? We've already done that? Okay, thank you. Bylaw number 92-2022, bylaw, traffic bylaw. That the bylaw number 92-2020, being a bylaw of Township of North Huron to provide regulation and control of traffic on the highways, roads, streets, crescents, and boulevards under the jurisdiction of the Township of North Huron, be introduced and read a first, second, and final time and signed in by the reeve and clerk and engrossed in the bylaw books. Do I have a mover? I have Paul moving. Do I have a seconder? I have Rick seconding. I'm going to open it up for questions or concerns. Any questions or concerns? I do not see any questions or concerns, so I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Announcement. The next regular council meeting will be held on Monday, October 3rd, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the North Huron Town Hall Theater, or potentially electronic. It is going to be electronic now. The next Police Board Services Board meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 20th at September 20th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the North Huron Town Hall Theater. Are we okay with that one? Is that timing okay for that one? Yep. Okay, thank you. The next Economic Development and Recovery Committee meeting will be held on Thursday, October 20th, 2022 at 2 p.m. at the North Huron Town Hall Theater. Last regular scheduled meeting for this council, or for that Economic Development Board. The next Wingham BIA Board meeting will be held on Thursday, October 20th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. in the Hot Stove Lounge at the North Huron West Cass Community Complex. Last regular scheduled meeting too. The next Blythe BIA Board meeting will be held on Thursday, September 29th, 2022 at 8 a.m. in the Blythe District Community Center. Other business, the request from Councilor Van Hindersum that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs the Director of Public Works and Facilities to investigate and include costs for the paving of the next part of the Moncrief Road in the East Wawanosh Ward on the 2023 draft budget. Do I have a mover? Anita moves. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Trevor seconds it. I'm going to open it up for questions, comments, or concerns. Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, this is not a new initiative. Councillor Hallahan was a very big proponent, or the former Councillor Hallahan from East Wawanosh was a very big proponent of this initiative. So, I mean, there's been a lot of initiatives that have taken a back door over the last 3 years. And I hope and I'm glad that, Councillor Van Hindersum has brought this up, because I think this is another opportunity for this not necessarily this council, but the next council to, start to reinvest in infrastructure and those types of things that this municipality sorely needs to start looking at for the future of this, for this future of this municipality.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Anita.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we talked about it 4 years ago already. We didn't continue with it. There was COVID. There was a change of Director of Public Works, so it came a little bit on the back burner, and I would like to have it seen move forward. So I would appreciate this.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you. Through you, I have a question for the Public Works. Is the prior years we've had a list of road conditions and which ones in a priority of how things were getting paved, and we had been following that as far as I can tell from the remembering the list length. I'm just wondering if where this road falls in that process. They've done portion of it. Just what was agreed upon, or what was scheduled to do portions of it, if it's only been half done, and they're requesting the finishing. I just wonder where it falls into the
Okay.
the timeline.
Jamie, knowing that you are not prepared to answer that question because you do not have information in front of you, but by memory, and I believe that was even before the time you were on our staff, so we understand as council when she tries to undertake answering this, that she's doing the best she can. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Through Reeve Bailey to Councillor Faulkner, where it currently is on the, because this is the new extension past, I forget the name of the road, my apologies.
Scott Line.
Past Scott Line, yeah, towards Hoover, correct?
Yep.
Yep, so that's still currently gravel. So it wouldn't be in schedule for paving, it would be a new, like it would be a new initiative. So currently, we have condition ratings for only hard surfaced roads, and that's what you would probably have seen in that asset management plan. Gravel roads aren't based on that, they're operational, not capital.
Kevin?
When that road was originally being resurfaced, as it is now to Scott Line, there was no future plans to go any further? Was that the original?
And again, Jamie, if you don't feel comfortable because you do not have paperwork in front of you, we understand.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. So through Reeve Bailey to Councillor Faulkner, if there was a schedule specifically for Moncrief Road, I haven't seen it, but I can look back in reports and get that information for you.
So just before I go to Trevor Sape, I would like to point out that this is just an investigation and including the cost of paving. This is not, so the public and everybody understands, this is not paving, this is getting a cost to pave it next year as part of the budget deliveries.
Delivery.
You got it. Trevor.
So the investigation that was done pre this council was all to talk about tar and chip. That's really what had been done in the past, was all tar and chip. And there was never a schedule as to continuing to keep moving tar and chip down the process, because at the time when Director of Public Works communicated to the council at the time, was our roads weren't in a position where they weren't set up properly in order to have the correct base, there's a lot of variables there in order to ensure that we could tar and chip them. So to really answer, I think, to Councillor Faulkner's question, no, there was not a specific schedule that says we're going to tar and chip from here to here in 2014. And I think really what it was is that Councillor, at the time, Councillor Hallahan really wanted staff to look at the roads in East Wallinosh that there were high traffic roads, to potentially look at these tar and chip options as a potential to save on the aggregate that we are putting on these roads every year. So I mean, it was an initiative that he had envisioned in the sense of saving operating funds by putting tar and chip on these roads in order to save that. I honestly don't want to speak for him, but that's my intention of what I believe it was at the time of that thing, or when he brought those things to council. And I mean, as Councillor Van Hittersum has mentioned, there's been a lot of initiatives that this council and future councils have had, and they just seem to get lost. And I mean, that's not an excuse, but it is a reality of what councils have to do with on a day-to-day basis.
So again, just go ahead, Chris, go ahead.
Kevin, you did have your hand up first, right?
Okay, you go ahead, and then I'll go back to Kevin. I didn't
I'll be
see.
short. I know when we started, and you brought it up, and we were nodding our heads that East Wallinosh, like, I'm always asked when I'm talking to ratepayers, what do we get? Well, you get snow removal. What else? Well, we're trying to tar and chip the roads. And it was brought up, I know you did, and I was very thankful you brought that up at the very beginning. And I know we agreed, and I was hoping that everyone else would too. And we started with Moncrief. And yeah, we got set back, I think, because the base wasn't good enough from the testing that was done. So, okay, now we have to fix the base on some of these, or all of them, or whatever. But we thought, or I assumed, and assuming is a bad word, I know, that we were going to be working the high, just like Trevor said, the high roads, the high-used roads, and just move a little bit at a time. It makes, as long as we did a little bit at a time, the public out in East Wawanash sees it. And it means a lot, okay?
Yeah.
So, and, you know, we can't always afford it, that'll be fine, but let's try and do it every year if we can.
Kevin?
Thank you, through you, Reed. I'm just concerned, we started out, I know that we have new staff coming in quite regularly, but the process that we had to assess our infrastructure was in place 2 years ago. I'm just curious, has the process now changed? So now all we have to do is put in a motion to add it? Because then I got lots of streets I'd like to put a motion in to pay. We had a schedule at one point, but now if it's just open, the process has changed for me, so I don't know what.
Jamie, could you speak to that?
Through Reed Bailey to Councillor Faulkner, I don't believe the process has changed, but we do have updated data that we get every year in order to update our asset management plan. So as it gets improved, or as assets fail, depending on what they are, whether it's water, storm, sewer, or the roads, or the sidewalks, they move within that asset management plan. It is considered more of a living document than a set document. With the roads in East Wawanash, they are a new initiative. They are an asset, but they're different because they're more operating costs than capital costs. So you would probably have seen two different sets of data in order for you to determine whether or not you wanted to move forward with tar and chip or micro surfacing or hot asphalt mix, that type of thing. The list that you were, I believe, referring to still does exist, but there is more accurate data that's been compiled, and again is being it will be provided to you in order to move forward with the 2023, 2024, 2025 budget. Does that help?
Thank you.
Okay.
So I just want to point a couple things out then, and not as excuses, but as reality. We spent 2.5 years in COVID, so nothing got done. Okay, so 2.5 years of our sitting term, we still did get a lot done from our sitting council's point of view. But we did go through 2.5 years of COVID. I know in my own line of work, good luck getting any parts, good luck getting anything. I think we have some projects that are being held up because they can't even get cement now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to go back to, and you've heard me say this before, we have an asset management plan. Staff is always working on it. Jamie just talked about it. Going back to what Kevin said, you should go to your plan and stick to your plan. It is a living plan and can be changed, yes. Again, finally, I will say in my final statement is, this is just simply a request that'll come to us on a budget with 1,000 other things. And at that point in time, we will hash this one out with 1,000 other things. Okay, so nobody is putting it in stone. And as you know, I don't want to do that in the last few days of my sitting council, because most of you know what we ran into, or especially what I ran into, a great big old wall when I first started, and I will not do that to the next sitting council. Okay, having said that, anybody else? Not seeing any. Do we have a motion?
Yes.
Do I have a mover and seconder?
Yes, we do.
Pay attention to anything, yeah. Cool. Okay, all in favor? Carries, thank you. Okay. We are on, that was Anita's.
Session.
Closed session reporting out that the Council Township of North Huron hereby proceeds at
8:05. 8:05.
8:05 PM into a camera session, closed to the public under section 239, bracket 2, bracket F, and section 239, bracket D of the Municipal Act to discuss the following. Advice that is subject to Solicitor client, oh my God, I'm out of time tonight. Privilege including communications necessary for the purpose of legal matter and labor relations or employee negotiations, human resources. And further that the CO Evans, item 1 and 2, and Kirk Lamb, items 1 and 2.
It's actually going to have to be,
And so we're going to switch it over to
Julie?
yeah.
Julie.
Do you want me to be acting clerk, or do you want me to just my name, or how do you want to put that?
It can be acting clerk.
So acting clerk, Ireland.
Julie Island, acting clerk, and Solicitor Stewart, item 1, and Human Resources and Health and Safety Coordinator Lindau, item 2, remain in attendance. Do I have a mover?
So just for the human resource, individual unfortunately is unavailable, so it will be myself, acting clerk Ireland, Director McCarthy, and Solicitor Stewart.
Okay. Everybody good with that?
So we need to have a mover and a seconder for that.
Do I have a mover? I have Rick moving, I have Anita seconding, all in favor, carries. Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute break.